What's up everyone, I'm CallumOnToast, and in today's video I'm going to be showcasing some crazy battles in the Great League Remix Cup, running a level 51 Best Buddy boosted Sandy Gas, or Moco as some of you will have seen in the intros to my videos, alongside both Arctibax and Aurorus. Now this was originally going to be a Sandy Gas showcase since it's a unique spice pick for this meta, but honestly I picked up a ton of really rough leads with it and it didn't necessarily have the best time, but Aurorus on the other hand absolutely went to town in these battles and it was such a powerful closer for me as I went 19 and 6 on the day. Now that's not to say Sandy Gas didn't put in a shift, it was just overshadowed by Aurorus. Anyways, if you're wanting to run this team, just run Palo Sand in the lead. It's got better stats in every single department over the Sandy Gas. I just like to flex my ridiculous XL investments whenever I can, so that's why I went with the Sandy Gas. But anyways, with that being said, let's just get into the question of the day. What do you think is the strongest closer for the Great League Remix Cup? Let me know in the comment section down below, and with that being said, let's get into the battles now. Alright, so heading into the first battle, the Sandy Gas into Pidgeot. So this is an absolutely awful lead for us. I have to swap out Sandy Gas. Can't even touch Pidgeot there. Everything is double resisted. Gonna say swap into Arctibax, and this is the point of this team. Arctibax should be baiting out any counter users. I'm really not sure why I built up to an Icy Wind and then didn't throw it there, because of course that would allow me to reasonably comfortably live a Shadow Ball, but at this point I have to just let this move go through. But the opponent baits with a Mud Bomb, but not only that, they're only gonna make it to another Mud Bomb, so I don't have to use a shield. I can just commit to a full sand attack farm down, preserve some health on the Sandy Gas, and swap into my Aurorus. And the opponent is also choosing to stay in with the Pidgeot. They're running Gust, so I'm actually able to outpace them to the charge move and grab the final shield from the opponent. Now, it's pretty clear they're just going to go for a Feather Dance here, but it's also very clear that the opponent is weak to Aurorus in the back, otherwise they would be swapping out. So we can go for a Meteor Beam, and Meteor Beam is going to ramp up our attack once again, and they've got a Mandibuzz in the back. So despite still being one stage debuffed in my attack, that was going to be a very easy sweep for the Aurorus, so the opponent just concedes the match there. So GG's to opponent there. Into next game, we see an Obstagoon in the lead, so a huge core breaker for the team. I'm going to no-shield the first move just in case they go for a Night Slash and get the boost, but they actually go for an Obstruct there. So of course Obstruct really not doing much damage, and yes, they have dropped my defense, but we are taking double resisted counter damage, so they're not going to be able to fast move farm me down, but they then get the Night Slash boost as well, so that is not ideal. We're going to go for a Scorching Sands. They're going to double shield their Obstagoon. At least we do drop their attack by one stage, but not ideal for us. They're going to go for another Night Slash here. They are outpacing me to these charge moves, and because they have boosted up their defense, unfortunately Scorching Sands isn't going to be enough damage to get the KO, but we swap into Arctibax, who preserve some health on the Sandy Gas, and this is just going to be a Night Slash. We can tank it fairly well, but they come in with Defense Form Deoxys. Now, as soon as they came in with Deoxys, I'm thinking, oh my gosh, this is probably going to be a triple counter team. Aurorus has literally no play up against this team, but the opponent is going to throw their energy here. So Psycho Boost will get the KO. I'm thinking because they've dropped their attack by 2 stages plus the Icy Wind, that's a 3rd stage debuff, we might live the Psycho Boost here, and I kind of just have to live this. So the opponent goes for the Psycho Boost, and we do hang on. We can make it to a Scorching Sands. No reason to go for a Shadow Ball there. Scorching Sands gets the KO. We're going to swap into Aurorus immediately, and there is a 3rd fighting type Pokemon, except this Pokemon is running Poison Jab as the fast move, and this is also just going to be a Mud Bomb, so that does not get the KO. Expect the catch there. So we hold on to the energy, we barely live the counter damage, and we make it to back-to-back Weather Balls. The first one, obviously, no shields in play. The second Weather Ball should be enough damage to eventually, after this lag here, I think the opponent has just quit the app here, take out the Toxicroak, and I'm able to take that game. So despite all of the odds being up against the Aurorus there, we're still able to take that game. But GG's to opponent there. Into next game, we see Defense Form Deoxys in the lead this time around. I'm not going to throw straight away, we actually overfarm, but then the opponent makes a brilliant catch there, catching the Shadow Ball onto a Noctowl, so a huge waste of my energy. Very nice play from the opponent. We're going to come in with the Aurorus, of course, going to be taking double super effective damage from those counters there, so basically just sacrificing it here. We're going to go for the Meteor Beam. I don't think a Weather Ball will quite KO, so Meteor Beam is going to get the knockout, and at this point, there's no point going for a Weather Ball. Weather Ball's not going to threaten a shield, even with the boost to our attack, so I'm just going to force the opponent to throw their energy energy, and they go for a Thunderbolt. So revealing they're running Thunderbolt and not Rock Slide there, which might be useful information for the Octobax. They're now going to swap into Sableye as the switch locks are slightly misaligned, but we grab a shield and then we can swap into Octobax. Now at this point, I have no plans on shielding my Octobax. The opponent goes for the foul play there, doesn't do too much damage, and I'm just barely able to outpace them to a Dragon Claw before they make it to the foul play. We grab the final shield from the opponent and we are dealing big damage with the Dragon Breaths here. At this point, gonna no shield like I mentioned, save both shields for the Sandy Gust. I know defense from Deoxys has at least a little bit of residual energy, but I don't think it's loaded, so we can just go here for a Shadow Ball into Deoxys coming back in. Shadow Ball is of course gonna hit for huge damage, but it's not enough damage to KO. I need to be able to Sand Attack farm them down here. They go for the Psycho Boost, and we are able to get the Sand Attack farm down, and the opponent's just going to concede the match there. So GG's to opponent there. Into next game we see Sandy Gast into Lucario. So this is a great lead matchup for us. They swap into Mandibuzz and things are looking great. We are going to no shield the first move here. If they're running Dark Pulse, honestly 2 Dark Pulses, especially with the pretty horrible IVs I've got on my Aurorus, might actually KO. But you can see Foul Play really does not do much damage. We go for Meteor Beam expecting it not to KO there, and that's the reason I threw there. So now at this point we can just let Foul Play number 2 get us into the red health range, and we're going to leave reasonably minimal farm for Lucario. Counter, of course, going to hit for double super effective damage. 2 counters takes us out, so they don't get a huge energy advantage. And now at this point, we can come in with the Sandy Gast here, and they will be able to make it to a Shadow Ball. I figured there's no point throwing a charge move here. Instead, I'm just going to shield. They bait with a power-up punch, but we will be able to go for a full Sand Attack farm down before they make it to the Shadow Ball, and they've got a Gligar in the back. So this is going to be game over. Shadow Ball is no shielded, and at this point, we can just go for a full Dragon Breath farm down, taking out the Shadow Gligar, and I'm able to take that game. So GG's to opponent there. Into next game we see Serperior in the lead. So obviously not great for us. We're going to swap into Octobax, and even with the Open Great League, when you see Serperior in the lead, it's often paired with a Carbink, which certainly isn't ideal for the Octopax, but this is fine. This is kind of what I'm expecting anyways, so I'm just going to no shield here. We have dropped their attack, but Rockslide does still get the knockout, and it doesn't really matter though, as we can come back in with our Sandy Gast, and they pretty much threw straight away there, so I can actually massively overfarm here. So we're going to farm up as much as we can. We're going to throw just before they make it to a Moonblast, I believe, so Scorching Sands will be coming through. It will get the KO. They come back in with Serperior now. Unfortunately, Aurorus does still take super effective damage from the grass typing. They're going to swap into Double, and as well, Double going to hit for double super effective damage with those double kicks. A lot of double and dub in those last few sentences there from me. But we grab a shield with the Meteor Beam. Unfortunately, I think we're only making it to a Weather Ball here, so we go for the Weather Ball, and that doesn't do enough damage, but it puts them into farm down range, and pretty much my only win condition is if they're not running Payback. So I no shield, and it's just a wild charge, and that's fine with me. This allows me to get an easier farm down here. So of course, gonna no shield once again. I have to, as they've got a loaded Serperior, and now I'm hoping a Shadow Ball will be enough damage to get the KO with maybe a few more Sand Attacks, because otherwise it's going to be game over, unfortunately, as they will be able to fully Vine Whip farm me down. And you can see Shadow Ball does big damage, but it's not quite enough damage here, and I don't think we're going to be able to get the Sand Attack farm down, and unfortunately the opponent does get the Vine Whip farm down, and we do end up losing that game. But GG's to opponent there. I do wonder if that's a matchup where if I was just running the Palossand in the lead, we deal more damage and we could have actually flipped that matchup there. But anyways, GG's to that opponent, and into the next battle, we see a Poliwrath in the lead. So that's fine. Poliwrath is a little bit of a tricky Pokemon to deal with when I'm running this team, but we're going to swap, catch the move onto our Octopax here, and this is a mistake you're going to see from me. I should have either just committed to the Dragon Breath farm down and potentially shielded if they got to a move, but what I did is I threw there before they'd even get to a foul play. Anyways, they were still one confusion away, so that allows them to come back in with the Poliwrath and just fully counter farm me down. So this Poliwrath is absolutely loaded, but we did leave with a Scorching Sands loaded as well, so gonna throw straight away. Unfortunately, we don't drop their attack. I'm definitely gonna shield this. I cannot afford to allow this Poliwrath to take out the Sandy Gast here, but the opponent's gonna swap into a Jellicent, so we have been debuffed in our attack. I'm just going for the Shadow Ball anyways. Shadow Ball grabs the shield. We're gonna swap into Aurorus here, and basically basically, I'm just going to fully sacrifice Aurorus. Of course, I know it has a 0 play up against that Poliwrath, so I'm just going to force him to go for back-to-back serves as soon as possible. We're now going to come back in with the Sandygast. I can't really afford to overfarm by much because those hexes will put me into counter farm down range. Shadow Ball gets the KO, and can I outpace them to a Scorching Sands before either they counter farm me down or make it to another Icy Wind? And the answer is Sandygast is able to get there. Scorching Sands, despite the debuff, takes out the Poliwrath, and I'm able to take that game. So GG's to opponent there. Into next game, we see Sandygast into Pidgeot once again. So again, gonna say swap into my Arctibax, and this time you can see they were running Wing Attack as the fast move, and at this point I'm going to shield the first move here because I'm gonna go for an Icy Wind. I'm gonna drop their attack, so if I do shield one move, then I might as well shield the first one whilst their attack is of course at the normal attack range. Now they are debuffed. Body Slam isn't going to be enough damage to get the KO, and I should just barely make it to another Icy Wind just as they're reaching the next Body Slam. And Icy Wind is going to grab the final shield from the double. Yes, they can go for a full double kick farm down, but that's absolutely okay. And even if they're running Payback, they are double debuffed now, so we should tank this pretty comfortably, and this is just going to be a Body Slam, so I can no shield this. Body Slam not going to do much damage. They actually swap back into Pidgeot, so once again I'm just going to no shield, assuming they're going to go for a Feather Dance here, and they do go for the Feather Dance. Absolutely fine for the Aurorus. We're now going to overfarm just slightly. I wasn't sure who wins CMP, so we go for the Meteor Beam and we take out the Pidgeot. They've got Wall Rain in the back, but it doesn't matter. Once again, we are one stage debuffed, but Meteor Beam going to hit for huge damage there, pretty much one-shots them, and the opponent just concedes the match there. So GG's to opponent there. Into next game, we have a pretty positive lead matchup for us leading into Typhlosion. The opponent's going to swap into Poliwrath, and once again, this is kind of where we need to see it, so I don't really mind that at all. They did bank a Thunder Punch, so we have to remember that, but we are unfortunately not going to make it to a second Scorching Sands before they throw. They're going to go for Icy Wind, and because of the Incinerate damage, we are pretty much in Icy Wind range there, so nice play from the opponent actually to stay in with the Typhlosion initially, but we're going to swap, catch the move onto the Arctibax here as the opponent goes for an Icy Wind. That is of course neutral damage. We're taking super effective damage from the counters, but that's fine. They're going to come back in with Typhlosion, and honestly I should have just committed to an Icy Wind here because I'm only making it to one charge move. They're going to go for a full Incinerate farm down, coming out with so much loaded energy. I think they've got 100 energy right now, so I'm going to come in with my Aurorus here, and I'm just going to no shield, assuming the opponent's going to bait, and the opponent does bait. They go for the Thunder Punch. We're now going to swap into Sandygast, and I make a huge mistake there by going for one Powder Snow first, and then swapping. I thought I had a charge move on my Sandygast already, so I was going for the Snipe, but the opponent's able to catch once again onto a Noctowl, so Noctowl unfortunately going to double resist my moves, and unfortunately again we don't get a debuff with either Scorching Sands. So now this Shadow Ball going to hit for huge damage there. I needed to make it to a Meteor Beam, and I don't quite get there in time. So at this point, I have to just hope we can live a Sky Attack, but we're not able to do so. So Sky Attack does get the KO, and we do lose that game. So GG's to opponent there. Into next game, we see Pelipper in the lead. Gonna say swap into my Arctibax, and the opponent responds with a Salazzle. Now, this is definitely a matchup that I can flip, especially in the two-shield scenario, but I'm actually pretty happy to just let the Arctibax go down. Of course, Poison Fang gonna hit for neutral damage, and they will now be able to go for a full Incinerate farm down. Possibly I should have stopped attacking there because they're only gonna make it to one charge move, and Sandygast really isn't gonna get much energy up against this Salazzle here, as Poison Fang drops my defense. We get like 2 sand attacks in there because of course it is double super effective, and now at this point I'm actually just going to no shield. I have to hope Aurorus can sweep, so we're going to swap into it here. They will of course outpace me to a Weather Ball, so I'm definitely going to shield this. I don't know what the final Pokemon is, and now we will be able to outpace them to a Meteor Beam. I'm going to wait for one turn there just to make sure they don't make a catch. Meteor Beam gets the KO, and they've got a Unnovan Stunfisk in the back. Now this is a little bit scary, but I think Aurorus does have enough bulk to live one Mud Bomb, but like I mentioned already, we do have a very poor IV Aurorus. And the reason for this, and the reason for a lot of my Pokemon often being pretty bad in the IV department, is because I'm a content creator. I want to showcase things as soon as possible. So with Pokemon like the Amura, for example, I believe it did come out, or it released as an egg-locked Pokemon, so you kind of just have to use whatever IVs you get, and I do have much better ones now, but there's not really any point in me rebuilding another Aurorus when I could put that Stardust into something that's going to be new for me and I just prefer to use new Pokemon over something with slightly better IVs than a Pokemon that I've already got. But anyways, GG's to the opponent there into next battle, and I can't remember what they led with, but they actually swap into a Ferrothorn, and this is fine with me. I'm going to overfarm here, throwing on the CMP tie. Icy Wind should be enough damage to get the KO, and it does get the KO. They come back in with the Frost Slash, so it was Frost Slash in the lead. Frost Slash, a little bit of a core breaker, but actually, Arctibax does fairly well since it does only take neutral damage from the Ice typing. The opponent's going to full send a Shadow Ball there, which is fine with me. Might be implying that they're running Triple Axle, which wouldn't get the KO there, but we're going to come in with the Aurorus, and at this point I'm happy to just shield this, as the opponent is going to go for a Shadow Ball once again. They're going to swap into Umbreon, and yes, we are down a shield, but Aurorus is just so strong in that closing position. We go for the Meteor Beam, dealing big damage, and now of course we boost our attacks, and now these Weather Balls are actually going to chunk up against the Umbreon, so we grab a shield there. The opponent, I'm hoping, is just going to be running Foul Play. If they're running Dark Pulse might KO in 2 hits, but Foul Play will not be enough damage to two-shot us here. So I'm actually going to overfarm. We're going to farm 2 near back-to-back Weather Balls here. The first one will be coming through. All shields are down. It doesn't quite KO there, but 1 extra Powder Snow gets the job done. And now we come out with a boosted Weather Ball to throw into the Frost Slash, and I'm able to take that game. So GG's to opponent there. Into next game, we see Sandygast into a Shadow Gallade. So of course, this is a pretty tricky Pokemon to deal with. They do overfarm just slightly here, so we're going to shield this up as they go for a Leaf Blade. I'm going to go for a Scorching Sands just before they make it to the next Leaf Blade, and then I will try and swap and catch the move onto my Arctibax, but unfortunately I am unsuccessful. And as well, the opponent comes in with a Toxapex. I'm going for Icy Wind. I know, yes, of course, this is going to be resisted damage, but it's going to drop their attack, so I should be able to live a Sludge Wave and then make it to another charge move, but the opponent actually baits with a Brine, which is, I think, pretty unnecessary there, but that's fine with me. This will allow me to make it to another charge move, and also they're going to have to throw a move to get the KO here. So at this point, going to let the Arctibax go down. The opponent goes for a Sludge Wave, fine with me. I've also put them into range. We're actually going to come in with my Aurorus and get the perfect Powder Snow farm down. Now that Gallade does have a lot of energy already, so I'm definitely going to shield this. It doesn't matter if it's a Leaf Blade or a close combat. They actually full send the close combat, but they've got Empoleon in the back, and this is a huge problem for this team, especially when all shields are down, as the opponent goes for the Hydro Cannon, gets the KO, and I kind of just wanted to see how much damage a Meteor Beam would do, but they're going to shield it anyways, and they're playing it safe. They're just going to throw a charge move to get rid of us, and of course, from whatever range, Hydro Cannon gets the KO up against the Aurorus, and we do unfortunately lose that game. But GG's to the opponent there. Into next game, we see Double in the lead. So this is fine with me, of course. Double can run payback. They might be running it, and this opponent is at least going to farm to a potential payback. So I'm actually probably going to respect the damage here, and at the last second, I will shield. It is the payback, and they're going to swap into a Gligar. So this is another reason that I thought Aurorus was just so strong in this meta. Somehow Gligar didn't get banned for the Remix Cup. As well, this opponent doesn't even farm to a dig. So of course, I can just easily no-shield that there. I can now massively overfarm, go for the Weather Ball, and we've got back-to-back Weather Balls already loaded, so throwing the second one straight away, and we're able to take out the Gligar. Now the opponent comes back in with the double. I'm expecting them to overfarm here, as of course Body Slam wouldn't have taken us out there. I throw it slightly awkward timing, but it doesn't matter, as I'm still able to get to another Weather Ball before they make it to the full farm down. Weather Ball number 2 gets the KO, and they've got a Carbink in the back, so Sandygast is going to be fine here. We can go straight for a Scorching Sands. Scorching Sands is going to do about half of their HP there, and we should be able to make it to another Scorching Sands. Doesn't even matter if they made it to a charge move because we got a shield anyways, but Scorching Sands number 2 gets the KO, and I'm able to take that game. So GG's to opponent there. Into next game, another huge core breaker for this team. I kind of just have to stay in. I can't swap into my Arctibax because, of course, whilst we do take only neutral damage from the Ice typing, we can literally hit for only resisted damage. But because they overfarm so much, I've put them into range where actually they're probably going to have to swap out, but unfortunately they're running a Poliwrath. So far, pretty rough team for me to face, but it's probably going as well as it could have here. As we baited out the Poliwrath, we're keeping it away from the Aurorus, and as well, I do still have some HP on my Sandygast. We're going to come in with the Sandygast. Unfortunately, they do have the energy advantage, so I'm going to use my first shield here as they go for an Icy Wind, and I'm going to just about make it to a Scorching Sands before they make it to the next charge move. Scorching Sands is going to grab a shield. We drop their attack, but at this point, I don't think I can shield, so Icy Wind will be taking us out. We can come in with Aurorus. I'm going for the Powder Snow farm down, but they've got a Shadow Swamper in the back. So honestly, my only win condition here is probably baiting with a Meteor Beam, having that shielded, and then ramping up my attack, so then a Weather Ball would KO. But the opponent no shields anyways, so either way, however I played this, I wouldn't have been able to win. They're at back-to-back charge moves, no point in shielding. Hydro Cannon gets the KO, and unfortunately we do lose that game. So GG's to opponent there. Into next game, we see Shadow Dragonair in the lead, so not ideal for us. I would like to see it obviously up against my Aurorus. I'm going to stay in here, and unfortunately they do just barely outpace us to that Aquatail, and I realise if I try and make a catch on the next move, they're not even going to bother throwing. They can just Dragon Breath farm me down at this point. You can see we are losing a lot of HP to these Dragon Breaths, so we're going to swap out eventually, and of course I'm going to swap into my soft answer to the Dragonair, but unfortunately because we swap then, they're actually able to get a full Dragon Breath farm down. I'm hoping we can at least go for a Sand Attack farm down before they make it to the next move, and we are able to do so. So let's see what the opponent wants to do. They come in with a Haunter, and we are just barely able to make it to a Scorching Sands. This is huge for me as it grabs the final shield from the opponent, and the opponent just blind swaps into Gligar, and at this point this is going to be game over. We can go for a Weather Ball on the CMP tie. Weather Ball takes out the Gligar, and at this point Weather Ball probably would take out the Haunter, but we're going to play it safe anyways. Shield up, they go for the Shadow Ball. We can now go for a Meteor Beam. This is massive overkill, but we're full sending it anyways, taking out the Haunter, and I'm able to take that game. So GG's to opponent there. Into next game, we see Sandygast into Shadow Magnezone, so a great lead matchup for us. The opponent's going to swap, and they swap into Gligar, so once again, amazing for the Aurorus. We can go for that Weather Ball, once again throwing on CMP, and Aurorus is going to grab a shield from the Gligar, so at this point, I'm definitely going to shield. Even if they bait, I still will be able to outpace them to the next charge move, but they full send the dig, so I'm going to overfarm as much as possible, throwing on the CMP tie, and the opponent is going to double shield their Gligar, so at this point, I'm just going to double shield as well. Of course, Sandygast is going to completely destroy that Magnezone, so might as well double shield, go for the full Powder Snow farm down, and I come out with very close to a Meteor Beam already loaded. So if they come back in with the Shadow Magnezone, despite being resisted damage, Meteor Beam does huge damage there. It's going to force them to throw their energy straight away, but this is looking pretty good for us unless they have a huge Core Breaker to the team. We're going to come in with the Arctopax, and they've got a Shadow Kingdra, so I can just go straight for the Dragon Claw, and of course up against a Shadow Kingdra, which is very glassy. Dragon Claw gets the KO, we get the Dragon Breath farm down, and I'm able to take that game. So GG's to opponent there. Into next game, we see a Shadow Granbull in the lead. So of course we have to just stay in here. Arctopax can't really do much there. So we're going to build up to the Shadow Ball, throw a Scorching Sands, hoping for a debuff to their attack. And Scorching Sands unfortunately doesn't quite get the debuff. Either it does or it doesn't. Don't know what I was talking about there, but it doesn't get the debuff. We're now going to come in with the Aurorus. I think what I meant to say is it doesn't get the debuff, and then we don't quite make it to the next Scorching Sands. But I just completely messed up what I was trying to say. But anyways, the opponent's going to swap into Jellicent. I tried to make a catch on the Surf, but the opponent full sends the Shadow Ball. But luckily for me, we do make it to the Dragon Claw, and we throw it on the CMP tie. So Dragon Claw will be coming through, and the opponent is just going to no shield. At this point, I'm just going to let Arctopax go down. Surf actually won't quite take us out there, so get a few extra hexes in for free, which isn't ideal for us, but I'm going to overfarm, go for a Meteor Beam on the CMP tie, and Meteor Beam going to get the KO up against the Jellicent. They come back in with the Shadow Granbull, and possibly I could have committed to a farm down. Well, of course, I don't know what they've got in the back. I'm not sure if I would have got the farm down, and they've actually got Umbreon in the back. So at this point, it's pretty much game over. I think even if I get a double boosted Meteor Beam and land it, it's still not going to KO the Umbreon, but I'm going to try anyways. If they're running Dark Pulse, I should get there on the CMP tie, but since they're running Foul Play, they're going to outpace me to the charge move, and of course, from this range, Foul Play easily takes out the Aurorus, and unfortunately, we do lose that game. So GG's to opponent there. Into next game, a great lead leading Registeel into Sandygast. They're going to say swap into Mantine and realize I might as well just go for the Shadow Ball here and either grab a shield or deal some big damage, and now I'm pretty much guaranteed switch advantage here, which is what I wanted, because Sandygast is going to wall the typical moveset of Registeel, although if they are running, say, Flash Cannon, for example, then that's still going to do some decent damage, but they go for a Water Pulse, and that is going to be resisted. Maybe it does do slightly more damage than an Aerial Ace, I'm not really sure, but either way, we're going to come out with a ton of loaded energy. It's not going to be particularly helpful as we're going to drop their attack, but Icy Winds don't do much damage, and they're probably just going to swap out anyway, so these debuffs, they don't really make a difference. But we go for Icy Wind number 2, and they do swap out. They swap into Jellicent. So despite being a bad matchup for the Aurorus, I don't really care. Just going to swap it in here. I realise Sandy Ghast is my win condition, so we no shield the Surf. Going to go for 1 extra Powder Snow and go for the Meteor Beam. And if they no shield this, Meteor Beam does huge damage to the Jellicent. They also over farm, which is perfect for me because this will either grab a shield or just take out the Jellicent. And now this is pretty much game over. They go for the Surf. We can come in with our Sandy Ghast. I'm pretty sure they're close to a second Surf, but it doesn't really matter. I'll use my 1 shield up against this Jellicent and then save 1 shield for the Registeel just in case they are running Flash Cannon. They swap there. I thought they'd throw straight away since they were definitely at 100 energy, but no, they hold on to the energy, which is a smart play from the opponent, but they go for the Zap Cannon. They don't get the attack drop, and it doesn't really matter. We go for the Scorching Sands. Scorching Sands grabs the final shield. We also don't get an attack drop, but I think we should probably live a Flash Cannon at this point anyways, but it's a focus bar, so that's also double resisted. We go for a full Sand Attack farm down, coming out with the Shadow Ball loaded. I could have just gone for a Sand Attack farm down there, but we full send the Shadow Ball, taking out the Jellicent, and I'm able to take that game. So GG's to opponent there. Internet's going to see Jellicent in the lead this time around, so this is okay, but I'm going to swap into my Arctibax, and the opponent's just going to go and fire off probably a Bubble Beam, as I don't really see a reason for them to go for a Surf, and it is the Bubble Beam. They now swap into Toxicroak, so I'm also going to drop their attack with an Icy Wind, and the opponent is now able to... Oops. Apologies there, my mic just fell over. But the Toxicroak, because they did drop my attack there, is able to live an Icy Wind. So quite a smart play from the opponent. And yes, I have debuffed them, but I'm figuring I might as well shield this, because otherwise, if I no shield that, Shadow Ball going to put me into Bubble Beam range, which I definitely don't want. And now we can just go straight for a Shadow Ball, and then I will swap into my Aurorus after a few more sand attacks there, and we're able to catch the charge move. It's probably just going to be a Bubble Beam anyways, and it is the Bubble Beam. But you can see Bubble Beam really doesn't do that much damage, so I'm happy to just let the next move go through as well. As the opponent goes for a second Bubble Beam, I'm going to commit to the Meteor Beam here, but I'm going to overfarm as much as I can. Going for the Meteor Beam now. We are double debuffed, but Meteor Beam still does big damage. They do hang on here, which isn't ideal, but Bubble Beam doesn't get the KO, and they've got a Dragonite in the back. So despite being triple debuffed, they still have to shield a Weather Ball. So now we can come in with the Sandy Ghast, and as long as we can make it to a Shadow Ball, we should be perfectly fine here. Definitely, of course, going to use my final shield as they go for the Dragon Claw. Shadow Ball should be enough damage from this range to get the KO here. So Shadow Ball does take out the Shadow Dragonite. We can just Sand Attack, farm down the Jellicent, and I'm able to take that game. So GG's to opponent there. Internet's going to see Mantine in the lead. So once again, just going to say swap into my Arctibax, and the opponent will outpace me to the first charge move if we try and commit to an Icy Wind. They just go for an Aerial Ace there, which is fine with me. We're now going to go for the Icy Wind, and I think this should allow me to live the next Aerial Ace, but the opponent's going to shield that, which is fine with me. At this point, you know what? I think I might shield. I am going to shield as they go for another Aerial Ace, and we make it to an Icy Wind on the CMP tie with the third Aerial Ace coming from the Mantine, and we're able to flip this matchup, but they come in with a Greedent now. I'm a little bit confused as to what to do here, of course. I could have committed to the Icy Wind. I probably should have done so because they're just going to go for a full Mudshot farm down. But at this point, I'm just going to come in with my Sandy Ghast. I'm hoping they don't have a hard answer to Aurorus, but I feel like since we swapped into our Arctibax, if they didn't have like a counter user or a Steel type, they're probably not going to have one, or if they didn't come in with one, then they're probably not going to have one on their team. So now we come in with the Aurorus. We are going to no shield the first move. This is enough once again for a crunch, but that's fine. Gonna let it go through, and then I'm going to throw on the CMP type with the Body Slam, assuming they're just going to want to throw straight away. And we go for the Weather Ball. Weather Ball is going to be no shielded, and they've got a Clodsire in the back, so we should be looking fine here, especially since they are running Poison Sting as the fast move, which is of course resisted by the rock typing. And at this point, I should be able to make it to 2 more Weather Balls before they make it to the next Stone Edge, but just in case I'm not able to deal enough damage with my fast moves, I'm actually going to go for the Weather Ball, then swap into my Arctibax and basically force the opponent either to throw a charge move or just take a lot of Dragon Breath damage. And now this is definitely Weather Ball range. We win CMP, taking out the Clodsire, and I'm able to take that game. So GG's to opponent there. Into next game we see Shadow Dragonair in the lead once again. So this time I'm going to try and make a catch onto my Arctibax, and we are able to catch what I assume to be a resisted Aquatail. It is the Aquatail, which is fine, but the opponent comes in with Empoleon. Now this is very tricky for my team to deal with, and as well they can just very comfortably tank this Dragon Claw, so not going to grab a shield advantage. They're also going to get a huge Steel Wing farm down, but we do have very close to a Scorching Sands already loaded, so if they do over farm here, maybe I could have made it, but unfortunately they are just going to throw straight away. They go for the Hydro Cannon, going to go for 3 sand attacks, and then go for a Scorching Sands just before they make it to the next charge move, and the opponent is actually going to shield that. So we drop their attack here. I still have to shield this, but this is pretty much game over. I expected the opponent to swap out straight away, and they do, but yeah, they can now just outpace me to the charge move. Aquatail isn't quite going to KO. We're going to throw it at the last possible second here, but it doesn't really matter. I think the opponent probably is just going to shield this, and they should still be able to make it to a charge move up against my Sandygast before we make it to a Scorching Sands. And of course, a Aquatail will be taking us out, and we do end up losing that game. But GG's to opponent there into the final battle of this video, and we're going to lead into another Mantine. So once again, just going to say swap into the Arctibax. And again, they are going to be able to outpace me to that first charge move. The opponent goes for an Ice Beam this time around, which is fine with me. I think either way, whatever they throw, the next charge move would take us out anyways. But we go for the Icy Wind, and we actually grab a shield. Arctibax could have Avalanche, by the way, so that might be why they shield that. But at this point, I'm actually happy to just let that go through. Aurorus is going to come in, and we know they've got Ice Beam and Aerial Ace, so we're going to completely wall their moveset. So if they don't swap out here, they probably don't have a strong response to my Aurorus, but also, or at least not too strong responses. And now we can just massively overfarm here. I did think about going for a Meteor Beam and ramping up my attack, but if they do have a single good response, like this Quagsire for example, I think I am going to swap out eventually anyways, so it doesn't really matter. Going to swap into Sandygast, and the reason we swapped there is because it was pretty clear that they didn't have, or they had something pretty weak to the Aurorus in the back, so it's going to be the Gligar here. They will be able to unfortunately outpace me before I make it to back-to-back Shadow Balls, but we're going to send the first one. It does big damage, and the opponent throws at the perfect timing there. Very good counting from the opponent, going for the Aerial Ace, taking out the Sandygast, but I believe a 2-shielded Aurorus should be able to win this game, especially since they only make it to an Aerial Ace. We can very easily tank that, and I just need to make it to 3 Weather Balls up against the Quagsire. Gonna go for the first one here. Quagsire no shields the first one, which is fine with me. I can just safely shield this up, and the opponent's running Mud Bomb as well, so going to be slightly slower to make it to that third charge move, and we're at back-to-back Weather Balls already. So the first one will be grabbing the shield, and we make it to a final Weather Ball, and from this range, it should be enough damage to eventually take out the Quagsire, and I'm able to take that game. So that's going to be it for today's video. If you did enjoy it, please make sure you leave a like, leave a comment letting me know, and as well, don't forget to respond to the question of the day if you haven't done so already. And if you want to see more content like this in the future, make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on post notifications. That way you'll be notified whenever I upload a new video. And if you want to take your support even further, you can now become a channel member with perks including early access to new videos, shoutouts at the end of each video, custom loyalty badges, and custom emojis to use in the comments. I want to say a massive thank you to everyone that has already become a channel member. Your support is greatly appreciated, and with that being said, thank you all so much for watching today's video, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.